Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Tuition. In this project, we're going to learn something very interesting. We will understand how to create weather app using React. In this app, we're going to get the current weather data of different cities. We're going to learn how to get current weather data from Open Weather Map API and use them in the application. I'm using Weather Icons project to import icons. If you want, you can use Font Awesome icons as well. But first, let me explain what we are going to build in this tutorial. So as you can see here, we have two text boxes and a button. In the first text box, we're going to specify the city name. In the second text box, we're going to specify the country of the city. And when we click on this get weather, we are going to get the current weather data of that city. So let's check this application. So if I just say here New York and specify here a country, US, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the weather of New York. Now as you can see here, I'm going to first specify the name of the city and the country, then the icon of the weather, then we have here a temperature in Celsius, as well as we have here a minimum and maximum temperature in Celsius, and the last we have here a description of the weather. So in New York there is a clear sky. Now let's check another city. So if I just say here Chicago, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the current weather data of Chicago. In Chicago, there is 29 Celsius temperature, the minimum temperature is 28 and the maximum is 31. And there is a broken clouds in Chicago. And the last, I'm going to check the weather for Los Angeles. So I'm going to say here Los Angeles. And when I press get weather, I'm going to get the data of Los Angeles. So as you can see here, the temperature is 18% and the minimum and maximum temperature is 16 and 21. And in Los Angeles, there is overcast clouds. But before you take this tutorial, make sure you have the basic understanding of React. If you don't, we have a complete course on React for beginners. You can check the link in the description. Now to set up the React project, you need Node.js installed in your system. So if you don't have Node.js installed in your system, install it first. Once you have Node, let's move on and set up the React project. So before we getting late, let's get started. So let's get started and create the weather application. So as you can see here, I have been opened the empty folder in Visual Studio Code Editor. Now I'm going to open the terminal to create React application. I'm going to press Ctrl tilde to open the terminal, and as you can see in this terminal, I have selected the desktop tutorial folder, and in this empty folder I'm going to create React application. So I'm going to just see here npx. If you don't know about npx is a command to use modules without globally installing it. And you can use npx if you have 5.2 or higher version of npm installed in your local system. So I'm going to just say here npx create react app and just specify here weather app. So this is the name of my application, and just press enter. This will take some time to create React application, so I'm going to leave this as it is. Now the React application is successfully created, as you can see here. Now let's start the server. So I'm going to just first change the directory to weather app and then just say npm start. So I'm going to first clear the screen, and right here I'm going to first change the directory to weather app and then just say here npm start to start the server. This command will start the server on the localhost 3000, which is the default port of React. Now as you can see, the server is successfully started and you can see the simple React boilerplate. So I'm going to just close this terminal and just open the source folder, and in this source folder I'm going to have here a component app.js. In this component I'm going to make some changes and just remove this header, and instead of adding this header I'm going to just say here h1 heading tag, and in this h1 heading tag I'm going to say weather app. When I save the changes, it's going to print weather app heading right here. Now let's create my first component. So I'm going to just select this source folder and I'm going to create a new directory here and name this directory app component. And in this directory I'm going to create a new file and name it weather.component.jsx. Now as you can see the naming convention of this file, I'm going to first specify the name of the file, then specify the type of this file, and then the extension. Now in this file I'm going to first import the React module. So I'm going to say import React, And in this component, I'm not going to create a class. Instead, I'm going to use stateless functional component. So I'm going to just say here constant weather is equal to, and just call the arrow function. And just after that, in this function, I want to return JSX. So I'm going to put all the JSX in this parenthesis. Now in this return statement, I'm going to first create a class container. So I'm going to just say here dot container. So this is going to create a division tag with the class container. Now in this container, I'm going to put h1 heading tag with the text weather app. And just after that, don't forget to export this component. So I'm going to just say here export default and just specify here weather. Save the changes and just get rid of this import statement because I'm not using any logo. And right here, I'm going to say import weather from, and right here I'm going to specify the app component folder and specify the weather component file here. And instead of specifying this h1 heading tag, I'm going to call my weather component right here. Save the changes. You have the weather app h1 heading tag here. Now let's get started and make some changes in weather component file. So instead of specifying this h1 heading tag here, I'm going to specify the city name here. So I'm going to just say here London. I'm going to wrap this h1 heading tag in the container. So I'm going to just cut this h1 heading tag and create here a div with the class cards. And in this cards, I'm going to put this h1 heading tag. Save the changes, and just after that, I want to glorify this template. To glorify this template, I'm going to use Bootstrap. So I'm going to open my terminal and just create a new terminal by clicking on this add button and just change the directory to weather app. And just after that, in this directory, I want to install Bootstrap. So I'm going to just say here npm install Bootstrap. I'm going to use Bootstrap to glorify the template, as well as using Bootstrap you can use predefined CSS classes. Now the Bootstrap package is successfully installed. I'm going to just open the app.js file, and in this file I'm going to link this Bootstrap file. So I'm going to just say here import, and in the single quote I'm going to select Bootstrap next CSS folder and then just specify bootstrap.main.css file. So we can use any Bootstrap CSS classes in this application. Save the changes, and just after that, open the weather app component. Now just after that, just after this h1 heading tag, I'm going to just create here h5 heading tag with the class padding y4. So this is going to specify top and bottom padding to this h5 heading tag. Just after that, I want to add here an icon. To add an icon, I'm going to use the GitHub project. So I'm going to just open the browser, and in this browser, I'm going to type weather icons. And I'm going to select this GitHub project. You can get the link from the description of this video, and I'm going to install this project in the web application to use these icons. Now to use these icons in your project, you just need to first link this weather icon.main.css file to your app component, and you can import icons with different classes in the I element, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first click on this green button right here, clone or download, copy this link, open my terminal, and I'm going to first clear the screen, and right here I'm going to say npm install and just paste the link here like this, right? And when I press enter, this is going to install this project in my application in this node modules folder. Now I like the UI of this icon, so I choose this weather icons project. If you want, you can use font awesome icons as well, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to just clear the screen and just close this terminal. Now in this h5 heading tag, I'm going to first add an I tag. So I'm going to just here I, and in this I tag, I want to specify a class name. So I'm going to just say here class name wi, and then specify the class name here. I'm going to just choose this class name here, sunny day. So I'm going to just paste that class name here to add sun icon in my project, right? So I'm going to just open here app.component file, and I'm going to import weather icons CSS folder, and in this folder I'm going to select weather icons.css file. Now you can see this icon in your project. I want to increase the size of this icon, so I'm going to just open the weather app component and just specify here display 1. So this is going to increase the size of this icon like this, right? Now just after that, just after this h5 heading tag, I'm going to just create here h1 heading tag with the class padding y 2. And in this h1 heading tag, I'm going to just add a temperature. So I'm going to just say here 25 degree. To add the degree symbol, you just need to say here ampersand degree. And don't forget to specify here semicolon. So this is going to add degree symbols to this 25, right? Save the changes. So this is the temperature in Celsius. Now just after this h1 heading tag, I just wanted to add minimum and maximum temperature in Celsius. So instead of creating JSX here, I'm going to just create a function right here and name this function mean max temp. And in this function, and to this function, I'm going to specify two parameters. The first one is minimum and the maximum value, right? Now this function is going to return JSX. So I'm going to just specify parentheses here, and in the h3 heading tag right here, and in this h3 heading tag, I'm going to create a span tag, and to this span tag, I'm going to specify padding x4. So this is going to add left and right padding to this span tag, and in this span tag, I'm going to bind these variable values. So I'm going to specify here curly braces and just here mean. Along with that, I want to add here a degree symbol. So I'm going to just say here degree and just specify semicolon here. I'm going to copy this span tag, paste it here, and just change this variable to max. Save the changes. I want to call this min max temp function just after this h1 heading tag right here. Now just after this h1 heading tag, I'm going to create a comment. So to create a comment in JSX, you need to first add the curly braces, and in this curly braces, I can add a comment here like this. And I'm going to just say here show max and mean temperature, right? Now just after this comment, I'm going to add here curly braces and call this mean and max temp function. And to this function, I'm going to specify two arguments. So the first argument is 24 and the second is 19. So this is going to pass these arguments to these parameters. Save the changes. You have the minimum and maximum temperature. Just after this function, I'm going to create h4 heading tag with the class padding y3. And in this h4 heading tag, I want to specify the description of the weather. So I'm going to just say here slow rain. This is going to specify the description of the weather, right? Now, as you can see, all we have is hard-coded values. So instead of using the hard-coded values, I'm going to get the data from the weather API and use that data to print the weather of the different cities, right? So I'm going to just open here, open weather website. So I'm going to just say here openweathermap.org, and from this website, you can get your weather API key. I already signed in with this API. So you need to first sign in with this Open Weather app. Using this weather API, you can access weather data for any location, including over 2 lakhs cities. The current data is frequently updated based on the global models and the data from more than 14,000 weather stations. So I'm going to use this weather API to get current data of different cities. So to get this weather API, you need to first sign in. So I'm going to just click on this sign in button. And I'm going to first sign in with this Open Weather application. So I'm going to just specify my email address and my password. And press submit to log in with this Open Weather API. Now once you log in, you can see here a message successfully sign in. And just after that, you need to just get your API key. So I'm going to just click on this API key. And now you need to copy this key and use to access the secure resources. So you just need to copy this key and use it in your application. So I'm going to just open my app.js file and just create here a constant variable API key and just specify this key in the string. Now just after that, we need to make a request to this weather API to get data from the API. So I'm going to just click on this API. I want to get the current weather data. So I'm going to just click on this API doc. Now from this current weather data, you can access weather data from over 2 lakh cities. Now to make an API call, you can see here, you have here an example of API calls. Now you just need to copy this link and we are going to fetch the data from this API call. Now to get the current data of the weather, you need to make an API call to this link, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to just get rid of this stateless functional component because I want here a class component to use state in this application. And right here I'm going to just create a class, name this class app extend component. So I'm going to just specify here react dot component. Then I'm going to use state in this application, so I'm going to leave this as it is. And in this return statement, I'm going to just specify this JSX code, right? And get rid of this function as well as this export statement like this. Save the changes. Just after that, as you can see, I have here a class of app component. I'm going to create here a constructor and just call super method, and here I'm going to just call a state. So I'm going to just say here this dot state is equal to, and just specify my state here, right? Now before I create any state, I'm going to just create here a method. Now I'm going to just create here a method. So I'm going to just say here get weather and just fetch the data from this API synchronously. So I'm going to just call here sync. And just after that, I'm going to specify here a function, the arrow function, and in this function, I'm going to fetch data from this API call. So I'm going to just copy this in this function. I'm going to just say constant API call and just call await fetch. Now in this fetch function, I'm going to make this API call. So I'm going to just say here backtick operator, HTTP, just call the API, OpenWeather API, the link, as well as I want to specify this API key to access secure resources, right? So I'm going to just add here ampersand app ID is equal to, and just concatenate this API value here. So I'm going to just say here API key. Now just after that, when we have the data in this API call, I'm going to convert that. So I'm going to just convert that into JSON format. So I'm going to just say constant response is equal to await API call dot JSON. So this is going to convert all the data in JSON format. Now let's check this data. So I'm going to just say here console.log and just say here response. And just after that, you need to just call this get weather in the constructor. So I'm going to just say here this get weather and just call this get weather method here. Save the changes. And when you open your application and open the console, you can see here you have an object here. In this object, you can see you have the current data of the London. So you can see here a name London, the city name, and the weather. So we have the description here light rain, the icon, the ID, and we have the light rain in the London. You can access the temperature as well. Just click on this main property and you can get the temperature of the London as well. As simple as that. So when we have this data in this response, I'm going to display all this data right here instead of specifying these hard-coded values. Now just after that, instead of specifying this hard-coded value here, London, I'm going to just get the data from the API call and print that in the UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just specify here in the state city, and to the city I'm going to just specify undefined and country undefined. Save the changes and open the weather component app, and instead of specifying this hard-coded value here, I'm going to just create a new property to this component. So I'm going to just specify here props and just get rid of this London and just say here, and in the single quote I'm going to say props dot city comma props country. Save the changes, and when you call this component, you need to just specify value to these properties. So I'm going to just open the app.js file, and right here to this component, I'm going to just specify city this dot state dot city. Also, I want to specify country this dot state dot country. And now just after that, you need to just update this state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just specify here this dot set state city. You can get this city from this name, right? So you just need to call here response dot name. Just after that, I'm going to just specify here country and you can get the country from this sys property right from here, right? So you just need to call here response dot sys dot country. Save the changes, and as you can see, you have your London and the country code, right? As simple as that. We can do the same for this Celsius, for this minimum and maximum temperature and the description as well. We can also do the same for this icon as well. Let me show you how. So I'm going to just create few states here. So I'm going to just say here icon, undefined, main, undefined. I'm going to just specify the default value to these states. Just after that, I'm going to say here Celsius, undefined, and just after that, I'm going to say temperature max and temperature mean. Just after that, I also want description, so I'm going to just say here description, and I'm going to just say here empty string, and the last I'm going to say here error, which is false by default. Save the changes, and just after that, now instead of specifying these hard-coded values to this Celsius, to this minimum and maximum temperature and this description, I'm going to get the data from this API and specify that in the weather component. So I'm going to just get rid of these hard-coded values. So I'm going to just get rid of the Celsius. So I'm going to just get rid of this 25, and right here I'm going to call the curly braces, and in this curly braces I'm going to call properties. I'm going to just say here props dot temp Celsius. Instead of specifying the hard-coded values to these function arguments, I'm going to just specify here props dot temperature mean, and to the second argument I'm going to say props dot temp max. Just after that, to this description, I'm not going to specify this hard-coded value. Instead, I'm going to say here props dot description. Save the changes and just specify values to these properties. So I'm going to just open app.js file, and right here to this component, I'm going to first call this temp Celsius. So I'm going to just say here temp Celsius is equal to this dot state dot Celsius. Save the changes, and just after that, just call temp max is equal to this dot state dot temp max, and just after that specify value to the temp minimum property, this dot state dot temp mean, right? And the last, you need to just specify this property description. So I'm going to just say here description is equal to this dot state dot description. Save the changes. You're not going to get anything here because we need to update these values because the default value is undefined, right? So I'm going to just specify here in this setState method, I'm going to just specify, I'm going to just call the Celsius, and now to this Celsius I want to select the temperature, so I'm going to select this main property and select this temperature. So this is temperature of Kelvin type. So I'm going to just say here response dot main dot temp. Save the changes, and as you can see, you have your temperature, but this temperature is not in the Celsius. To convert this Kelvin type in Celsius, I'm going to create a method here. So I'm going to just say here calculate Celsius and just specify a parameter temp. Now to calculate the Celsius, I'm going to just say here let Celsius is equal to temp minus, you just need to minus 273.15 from the temperature, and then you're going to get the Celsius value in this let variable. So I'm going to just return that variable. So I'm going to just say here return cell, right? Now as you can see, this will return the double value. So I'm going to just convert this into integer. So I'm going to just call here math.floor and just specify here temp minus 273.15. Save the changes, and just after that right here instead of specifying this response, I'm going to call this dot calculate Celsius, then just say here response dot main dot temperature. As you can see here, you have your temperature. Now I'm going to do the same for this minimum and maximum temperature as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just specify here comma and just say here temperature max, this dot calculate Celsius, response dot main dot temperature max. Copy this statement, paste it here. Just change this temperature max to temperature mean and this temperature max to temperature mean. Save the changes and you can see here we have the minimum and maximum temperature here, right, from this weather API. Now just after that, I also want to specify the description. So I'm going to just say here description response dot weather and just call the first index of this weather and just call the description property of the weather API. Save the changes. You can see here you have your description of the weather, right? As simple as that. Now just after that, let's work with these icons. Now I want to change this icon depending on the weather. So I'm going to just open the weather component app, and instead of specifying these hard-coded classes here, I'm going to just get rid of these hard-coded classes. So I'm going to just get rid of this class and wrap these classes in the backtick operator like this. And just after that, right here, I want to call a property. So I'm going to just say here props dot weather icon, and I'm going to specify this class when we call this component. So I'm going to just open the app.js file, and right here I'm going to specify that weather icon property. So I'm going to just say here weather icon, and right here I want to specify this dot state dot icon. I want to specify this state property. So I'm going to just create here a property called weather icon and specify an object. I just specify my first key and value pair. So I'm going to just say here thunderstorm, and in the value I want to specify the class name of the icon. So I'm going to just say here wi thunderstorm. Save the changes, and just after that I'm going to say here icon this dot weather icon dot thunderstorm. Save the changes, and when you open your application you can see you have the thunderstorm icon here. But now I want to specify this icon depending on the weather. In that situation, I'm going to get the ID of the icon and just specify the weather icon. Now let me show you how you can specify weather icon depending on the weather. Now let's open the Open Weather Map website, and right here, now to specify icon for the weather, you just need to open here route call weather conditions, and in this route you can see you have different icons. So you can use these icons to specify different weathers in your application. But I'm not going to use these icons because these icons is in the PNG format. If I use these icons is going to pixelate in the application. That is why I'm not going to use these icons. Instead, I'm going to use the SVG icon that will never pixelate. That is why I'm going to use SVG icons. Now let me show you how you can specify different icon for the specific weather. So let's say there is a rain in London. So I'm going to specify rain icon to that weather. So if the ID of the weather is between 500 to 531, I'm going to specify rain icon to that weather. Or if in London there is a snow, I'm going to specify snow icon to that weather. So if the weather ID is between 600 to 622, I'm going to specify this snow icon to that weather. Now let me show you how we can do that. Open the application, and in this application, let's add few more icons here. So I'm going to just add few more icons. So as you can see, I just created few icons here, and I'm going to specify this icon depending on the ID. So if you open your application, you can see here in the weather property right here, you can get the icon ID right here, right? So using this ID, we are going to understand which icon we need to specify to this weather. 500. I want to specify this rain icon to this weather because we have here ID 500. So I need to specify this light rain icon. So as you can see here, I specify here a rain icon. So I want to specify this icon if the ID is between 500 to 531. As simple as that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create here a method and name this method get weather icon. And to this method I'm going to specify a parameter icons as well as range ID. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just call switch statement and just specify here true. And in this switch statement right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say, oops, I misspelled the spelling here, range ID. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say here, in case range ID is greater than or equal to 200 and range ID is less than or equal to 200, then I want to specify icon to the state. So I'm going to just say here this dot set state, and to the icon property I'm going to just specify this dot weather icons dot thunderstorm. So I want to specify thunderstorm icon if the ID of the icon is between 200 and 200, or if the icon ID is equal to 200 or 232. So as you can see, if I open the weather condition, you can see for the thunderstorm, if the thunderstorm ID is between 200 to 232, I want to specify thunderstorm to this weather, right? Just after that, I will just here break the statement. If this condition became true, copy the statement, paste it here, and just after that, change this condition. So the second condition is if the ID is between 300 to 321, or the ID is equal to 300 or 321. So I'm going to just say here 300 or 321. I want to specify icon result. Just after that, do the same here, but just change this condition. So I'm going to just specify here if the ID is between this 500 to 532. I'm going to just say here 500, 531. I want to specify rain icon to it. Just after that, right here, to this now, if the icon ID is between 600 to 622, I'm going to just say here 600 to 622. I want to specify snow icon. So I'm going to just say here snow. Just after that, copy and paste the case again. And right here, I want to check the atmosphere. The ID is between 701 to 781. So I'm going to just say here 701 to 781. And I want to change this icon to atmosphere. Just after that, if the weather is clear, I want to check this ID. So I'm going to just say here if range ID is equal to 800, then I want to specify here clear icon. And at the last, the ID is between 801 to 804. I want to specify an icon clouds. And at the last, just specify the default statement. So I'm going to just say here defaults, copy the statement and paste it here. Save the changes, and just after that, just get rid of this icon from this state like this. And just after that, in this get weather function, I'm going to just call this dot get weather icon, and to this method I'm going to first specify the icon object. So I'm going to just say here this dot weather icon, and the second argument is the range ID. So to get the range ID, when we have the data from the API, you can get the ID right here. in the weather property. This is the ID, right? So to get the ID, you just need to call the weather 0 index and just call the property. So I'm going to just say here response dot weather, call the 0 index and just specify here ID. Save the changes. Now depending on the weather, I'm going to get the different icon, as you can see here, as simple as that. Now when you execute this application, you are only going to get the data of the London city. So what I want to specify my own city and get the weather of that city. In that case, I need to just change these values. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just create here one more component and I'm going to name it form.component.jsx. And in this component, I'm going to first import the React and just say here constant form is equal to props. So I'm going to just create here a stateless component, and in this component I'm going to return JSX, and in the return statement right here I'm going to create a division tag with the class container. Now in this container I'm going to create a row, so I'm going to just say here row. So this class will specify every descendant element in any row, and in this row I'm going to create 3 columns. So I'm going to just see here call MD3. So I'm going to just create 3 columns here, and just after that in the first column I'm going to add an input tag. So I'm going to just say here input type text, specify the class name, form control. Just after that I want to specify here name, city, and I want to specify autocomplete off. Just after that I'm going to just copy this input tag and paste it in the second column and just change these properties. So I'm going to just change this name property to country, and in the third column I'm going to just add a button here and specify a class btn warning, and just specify text get weather. Save the changes, and just after that I want to just call this form component in my app.js file. So I'm going to just call this form component up here before the weather component right here. But before I call this component, I need to first import that. So I'm going to just say here import form from, just specify here the location of that form component. Just call here the component name. So I'm going to just call form component right here and just close it. Save the changes. Here is the default export. Yes, I forgot to add a default export here. So in the form component at the last I want to just say here export default form. Save the changes. Now as you can see here I have the input tick boxes and the button. Now I just wanted to add some margin to it. So I'm going to just open the form component, and to this button, to this third column, I'm going to just specify margin top MD 0 and text MD left. Along with that, I'm going to just specify for the first column offset MD2. Save the changes. I just wanted to add some style to it. So I'm going to just create a new file here and name that file form.style.css, and I'm going to link this file to this form component. So I'm going to just say here import, and in the import statement right here I'm going to just call form.style.css to link this file to this form component. And in the form style right here I'm going to just select the form and just specify margin top 3 rem, and just after that I'm going to say form input, select the input tag and select the name using the attribute. So I'm going to just say here name city, specify here comma, and just select the country input as well. And to this input tags I want to specify background color transparent. Then I want to specify a color property white, border bottom, 2 pixel solid white small. Just after that, I'm going to say border radius 0. And just after that, I'm going to wrap this division tag in the form tag. So I'm going to just wrap this div. So I'm going to select this div, cut it, and in the form tag, get rid of this action attribute. And in this form tag, I'm going to put this division tag. So when I open my application, you can see this type of result. Now what I want to remove this border. So I'm going to just remove this border first. So from this input text boxes, I'm going to first remove border. So I'm going to say here border 0. And as you can see, this type of result. I want to specify some placeholder name to these text boxes. So I'm going to just open the form component. And just after that, I'm going to say here placeholder city, and I'm going to just specify placeholder country. Save the changes, and as you can see here, we have city and country here. Now what I want, when I select these input text boxes, I don't want this box shadow. To remove this box shadow, I'm going to just open the style CSS file. I'm going to just say here form input, and to this input, I'm going to call focus, and in this focus, I'm going to say background color, transparent, box shadow, none. I also call the important statement here to override the bootstrap property, and just save the changes. So now when you click on this input tag, you are not going to get this shadow. Now I just wanted to add some margin to this title. So I'm going to just open my Weather component tab, and right here, I'm going to just add padding top 4. Save the changes. This will add some padding up here like this. And just after that, I want to specify these values in this API right here. So I'm going to just say here. Now what I want to do is, when I press this button, I want to execute this method. So I'm going to just open the form component, and to this form, I'm going to create an event. So I'm going to just say on submit, and to this event, I'm going to specify a property. So I'm going to just say here props dot load weather, and I'm going to specify this event handler in this app.js file right here. So I'm going to just say here load weather is equal to, and just call this dot get weather method. So when we click on this button, I'm going to execute this method. So I can remove this method from the constructor. So I'm going to just get rid of this method from here. Save the changes, and now when I click on this get weather, I'm going to get the data. But as you can see, when I click on this get weather, the application is reloading. I want to stop the default behavior of this button. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just call here in this get weather method. So I'm going to just call here an event parameter, and just say here event e dot prevent default. Save the changes, and when I click on this, I'm going to get my data here. Now just after that, I want to select my own city and the country, and right here I'm going to create 2 variables. So I'm going to just see here city is equal to e dot target dot elements dot city dot value. So to get the value of this text box, I'm using this name property, right? So as you can see here, using this e dot target dot elements dot city, I'm going to get the first text box value in this variable. Just after that, I'm going to just copy this statement, paste it here, change the variable name to country, and change this city to country. Oops, the value is like this value. Just after that, I'm not going to specify this hard-coded value here. Instead, I'm going to just specify here city, and I'm going to wrap this variable as well, country. And just after that, what I want, if the user leave these text boxes empty, I'm not going to call the API. So I'm going to just copy the statements and just say here, if we have city and country, I want to call this API, else I want to display an error message to the user. So I'm going to just say here this dot set state, and I'm going to call the error true. I'm going to change the state property true. Save the changes, and just after that, in the form component right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a function here and name this function error. And to this function, I'm going to return JSX. So I'm going to just create here a class alert, and I also want to specify here alert danger bootstrap class. Just after that, I want to specify some margin X 5. This is going to specify left and right margin to this division tag, and I want to specify row alert. And in this div, I'm going to just say here please enter city and country. Save the changes, and at the top right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say here div, and in this div I just want to specify if the props.error, if the props.error is true, I want to call the error function, else I want to return null. Right now here, what I'm going to do is if else property is become true, I want to print this error message. Right, so I'm going to specify this error property to this form. So I'm going to just say here error is equal to this dot state dot error. Save the changes. Now just after that, what I want to remove these commas and these degree symbols. So I'm going to just open my weather component, and instead of specifying these two properties here, I'm going to just specify only one property like this. And in the app.js file, what you need to do, you need to just get rid of this name, and right here I'm going to just call the backtick operator and just call response.name, as well as I'm going to just specify here comma and just call the second property is response.sys.country. And now I can get rid of this country from here. Save the changes. As you can see, you're not going to get this comma here. Now I just wanted to get rid of this degree symbol as well. So I'm going to just open my weather component. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get rid of this h1 heading tag, and right here I'm going to say if property dot temp Celsius. So if we specify value to this property, I want to print this h1 heading tag, else I want to return null. Save the changes, and as you can see, you're not going to get this degree symbol here. Now let's remove these two dots as well. So I'm going to just check here if we have mean and this max value, I'm going to just say here return, and I want to return this h1 heading tag, and I'm going to get rid of this second return statement. Save the changes. I don't have these dots here. Now at the last, I want to specify some background image to it, so I'm going to just add an image. So I'm going to just create here in the source folder assets, and in this assets I want to add an image. Now I want to specify this background image to my application, so I'm going to just copy it and specify to my weather application in the asset folder right here. Just open the index.css file, and in this file to the body tag I'm going to just specify background image. In the URL I'm going to just say here asset folder and just select this image. Just after that, I want to specify background size, cover, and background repeat, no repeat. Save the changes, and when you open your application you can see this type of result. Now what I want, when I select these text boxes, I want to remove this background color. So I'm going to just open the form.style.css file, and right here I'm going to just say important to override the bootstrap classes. Save the changes, and as you can see, I'm not going to get any background color to these text boxes. Now what I want to get the weather of New York City. So I'm going to just say here city New York. Now what I want to just change this color of this placeholder. So I'm going to just open the form style.css file, Right here, I'm going to first select the form, input, and I want to specify here color, white, and just say important here. And just after that, I'm also going to select the container. Save the changes, and just after that, I want to get the weather of New York City. So I'm going to just say here New York, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the data of New York. But at this time, I want to change this text as well. So I'm going to just open my weather.component file, and to this container, I'm going to say text light. Save the changes, and I'm going to do the same here, New York, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the weather of New York. And if I want to get the weather of London City, so I'm going to just say here London, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the weather of London City. And this application is also responsive, so if you open this application in the mobile version, you're going to get this type of result. Now I'm going to add some padding to this button, so I'm going to just open my form component and say padding by 2. Save the changes. As you can see, the application is ready. Now let's say I forgot to specify any value to these text boxes, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get an error message, please enter city and country. And when I press city here and country, and when you press get weather, you're going to get your data. But I just want to disappear this message, so I'm going to just create here in my app.js file. When I set the state right here, I'm going to just set state, so I'm going to just say here error false. Save the changes, and let's say if I forgot to specify any value in these text boxes, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get this error message, please enter city and country. And when I specify here city and country, and when I press get weather, as you can see, the message is gone and you're going to get your weather data, right? As simple as that. When you want to get the weather of New York, I'm going to say here New York, USA, and when I press get weather, I'm going to get the weather of New York City. I can change the destination as well. If I just say here London, I'm going to get the weather of London. Now if you find anything useful in this tutorial, don't forget to press the like button, share this video with your friends, subscribe for more latest programming videos, and don't forget to share your thoughts. That is all for now. I will see you in the next one.